Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. Woo! My guest this week is Judd Shaw. Yes, I'm a cheerleader for myself. He's an adventurer, storyteller, an agent of change, blending his background as a lawyer and a CEO of Judd Shaw Injury Law with a passion for helping others. You know, he went up the I made it mountain only to discover the hollow rewards without genuine human bonds. And through introspection, therapy, and collaboration with professionals, Judge developed the CURE framework, a compass guiding individuals and businesses to create authentic connections and thrive. As a celebrated keynote speaker on vulnerability and authenticity and shame-friendly work environments, Judge shares his transformative journey to inspire others. He also shares his message through his best-selling children's book series, Sterling the Night, and his podcast, Behind the Armor, which I had been on. His motto is Bravery Starts in the Heart. And you can learn more about him at the Juddverse. Juddverse, I love that. Look, we had a great conversation about personal transformation and how we change to make ourselves and the world a better place. You guys are going to love this episode, so give it up for Judd Shaw. Thank you for joining us. What you're doing, you have so many different facets to your career and everything you're doing. So I thought we would just start off by you telling everyone how much you're doing, because I just thought between the law firm and your keynoting, it's so interesting. So here's Judd.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm a lawyer by background. I've been practicing for about 20 years. I have a large personal injury and healthcare practice out of New Jersey, Judd Shaw Injury Law. I founded it, serves as CEO and president of the company at this time. And at the same time, um, I reached my dark night. While I found humor in my C-suite, I also found a lot of struggle, a lot of disconnection, and a lot of loneliness. And that really led me to seeking external validation. And as a result of it, I realized that I really needed to heal. There were a lot of things going on that I just continued to carry, and those things now were playing out in my own company. And I didn't want that to be mirrored. And so after about 2 years of my own sort of healing transformation, I then went in and developed a personal brand after re-engineering my own healing to try to pass on to other leaders and organizations and teams how they can create authentic connections, connecting with themselves and with others, and really, as a result, thriving in the process. And so that led to a podcast called Behind the Armor, where we really deep dive into encouraging people to show up real and raw. I'm working on a book. I have a children's picture book series called Sterling the Night, really my little inner child who runs around and goes on adventures to teach other children really important social and emotional lessons that they'll need as skills going into adulthood, like empathy and fairness and connection. And so after Sterling the Night, I also have gotten into keynote speaking, where I speak to companies, teams, departments on how to create authentic cultures and the importance of them, and also dealing with the future of shame. What does shame look like in the workplace? And how can we create a shame-friendly space? And so beyond the keynote speaking and the books and the coaching and the workshops and my law firm, I call it the Juddverse, and it's all at juddshaw.com, and you can kind of navigate your way there. But all of these things these containers are just sort of evolutions of me.
I love that. That is so, I want to say profound because I do find it just your journey and your honesty about it, because so many people would hide that loneliness, that, what's going to make them change. Yet you really swung into it and allowed it to change you and who you are. In terms of being a leader yourself at your law firm, how many people do you have or have you had working there with you?
It's just shy of 50 people.
Wow, just why are you such an underachiever? Anyway, What? Which is amazing. So I want to get into that because to me, because you're so self-aware,
Mm.
it's really, I think, gonna tend to make you a great leader, because you do have that, vulnerability about you. But we always like to start the podcast off is, do you have a favorite joke?
Um, you know, the my favorite joke is the joke that went on in my law firm that I wasn't even aware of. And the ongoing joke was that anytime I would say, do this, my chief operating officer had instructed everybody to put a very specific note into the file that says, Judd says, do this. Because what ultimately happened is if the outcome was not exactly the way I wanted the outcome, or there was something off about the case, I would look at it and I would say, what happened here? Or why did we do this? Or why didn't we do this? And why didn't you? And I'm looking at my team and I'm blaming people and I'm finger pointing. I'm like, who's responsible? They should be fired. And then they point out and they're like, you said it. And I'm like, what? I would never do this, right? And then it would go, please look at the case file note 14. And in there it would say, Judd says do this. And then I
That's
would just be like,
great.
okay, move on to the next case.
That's great. I love that. That is so funny. They
So the
got you.
joke was on me. Yeah.
Yeah, the joke was on you. What a great way to start this. I love that. Do you find or have you found within everything you're doing? I love like the fact you're doing children's books and that's your child self and feeding all those different aspects of yourself. Do you find that when you use humor within those situations and you are able to laugh at yourself or have that atmosphere at work when you are dealing with serious stuff, people are hurt, their lives are depending on this, and for you guys doing a great job, but within that, are you like doctors or military? I find they have a very dark sense of humor sometimes, like within those high stress situations. Do you find that?
I do. And we are doing serious work and there are people who are seriously injured. But, that's not where the humor shows, at least in my culture. In our culture, the humor shows in our mistakes. The humor shows in our feelings of shame. The feeling, the humor shows when we fail forward. Because when the leaders of an organization, presidents, supervisors, CEOs, whatever they are, whoever can make the call, are laughing at their own mistakes, finding humor, which removes the shame,
Yeah.
and acknowledging that transparently, being able to laugh at yourself gives permission for the team to do the same. And that's where you can get a culture of people laughing at themselves in a way that allows people to raise their hand when they have questions, surface problems, challenge the status quo, because they're not fearing that what they say will ultimately get them fired. They're not fearing the shame that if they say something, it's going to sound stupid, because we've learned that we can laugh at each other and we can laugh at ourselves. And in that moments of humor drives deep connection.
I love that. Well, mic drop right now. I don't think we need to. We're done. Okay, thank you. No, that's so great. And it's all so true, and it takes a lot of self-awareness to create a culture of that. And it's so telling in the sense of the productivity that comes out of it and the innovation and really being able to have or create that atmosphere of taking a chance and thinking differently and outside the box and all those things, which I think is amazing. Do you have anything that you guys do at work or that part of your work anyway, where you are like, do you have like team building days or anything that you do for your staff or everyone working there, other lawyers or?
What we like to do is we do a monthly mixer. And the monthly mixer is the last Thursday of every month. And we buy lunch for the team and we come together and we have a theme. Now, the more humor we can inject in the theme, the better the event turns out.
I love
So
that.
if we're going to come and say, okay, everybody, this week we're going to, this month we're celebrating gratitude. And we're going to come and we're going to, put what you're grateful for in a gratitude bucket and we're all going to have lunch and we're going to, that's okay. That's great. It's nice. But what's really funny is that, like, come May, because my law firm's in New Jersey, we have, like, the theme is the Jersey Shore. And
Yeah.
so because it's Memorial Weekend and Jersey Shore starts, you got to come as an MTV Jersey Shore character.
Oh my God, are you Snooki? Tell me you're Snooki.
No, but the Snooki that showed up was so Snooks. Like, she nailed it. She nailed it.
That's
She
great.
nailed it. No, no. But that's funny.
Yeah.
And so people come dressed up in their outfits and we do that for different themes. And it's the brevity of it, the levity of it, the
Yeah.
lightness to it. And what I find is that, particular as you point out, the nature of law can be stressful. It's a lot of hours and it's high stakes a lot of times. It's win or lose. And these things, and if we can't find humor in our lives, in our connections, then I think it becomes a very lonely environment.
Yeah.
Because then we then then that stress is felt. Then those emotions don't have that outlet. And the outlet is when we're around the conference table and somebody says something and I'm like, "What?" And we can laugh at that. And we're not laughing at the person, we're laughing with them,
Yeah.
and gives permission for everybody to laugh. Wow, you could just cut all of that stress and it just leaves the room.
When you're dealing, because you're dealing with so many different aspects, like you're dealing with people who work for you at the firm or with you, I should say.
Yeah.
And then you're also dealing with clients who have hired you. Do you find there's like a distinct difference? I mean, obviously, you know the people more who are working with you. But in terms of dealing with clients, are you able to use humor in those situations as well to
I
put them at
always,
ease or
it's a great point. And when I'm talking to a client, depending on the circumstance,
yeah.
I do find that if I can use humor, if we can get a laugh, we can drive a little the connection. But sometimes we're talking about injuries
Yeah.
and medical treatment and
Yeah.
things that are just don't have the place for the humor at that moment. But
Yeah.
then I'll say, but I can say and use humor as examples also for analogies. So, for instance, I would tell a client, how long do you think this case is going to take? Because that's always a sticking point, right? One sticking point to every personal injury case is, how long is this going to take until I get a resolution or
Yes.
settlement?
Yeah.
And boy, does that change. That changes from however long you need medical treatment. If you're treating,
Right.
your case is still going. Someone can have 3 months of chiro and someone can have spine surgery. That case is a very different case and a very different length of case.
Yeah.
And so I'll always try to say something, for instance, like, how long do you think this case is going to go on? And the client will say either one of two things. Maybe 3 months. And that opens a door. And I'm like, listen, if it's 3 months, I bet, I hope I'm getting a 5-star review because it may be the fastest settlement of personal injury. And
Ever.
so, ever. But we're going to try. But here's the
Yeah.
reality of the cases. And then blah, 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 blah. And then go on to
Yeah.
tell them why their perspective is off. so that
Right.
I'm using humor to manage expectations.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, I'll say, well, how long? And they go, 5 years. My cousin's case took 5 years. And I'd say, you could be right, but boy, I hope we can do it in less.
Yeah.
And if it's in 5 years, it'll at least mean that you and I will have gotten to know each other really well
That's great.
because we'll be talking a lot. And I want
Yeah.
to move your case sooner and faster than that because it also means you're healthier and ready to move on.
Yeah.
But and so that I'll use humor in ways that I can use it for connection, use it
Mhm.
even for analogies, examples, managing expectations, but never or rarely when the client is disappointed,
Right.
because then
Yeah.
I don't want to use humor in a way that now they feel that the funny is mocking
Yeah.
and is not connecting.
Wow, that's so true and so poignant. Do you find do you have relationships with the lawyers on the other side because you've been in it so long? Like, do you know all the and do you make fun of them? Oh, here we go again, Ralph. It's like I'm going to age myself right now, but it's like the road runner and
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
the
Uh-huh.
coyote kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. Like yeah, and then they clock out in a couple episodes and like, "All right, Ralph, see you tomorrow."
The beauty of that
Yes.
is I've learned over time to be able to do that. In the
Yeah.
beginning, interestingly, I thought humor meant I'm minimizing my job. And so I
Wow.
would come in with this like so serious. And I remember there was a lawyer who followed me out one time and he told me, he's like, why do you like burning the village and killing women and children and taking this mad dog litigator approach? And you're so, and but that was like an identity. Like if I'm humorous or if I can laugh, then I'm not serious enough and maybe
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
threatening enough. And then I realized over time that particularly with judges, when I
Right.
can when the judge can laugh about the silliness about something that's going on in the case and we can all laugh,
Yeah.
that attorney and myself, the adversary, it doesn't feel so adversarial anymore. It's like,
Right.
you have a client and I have a client, but
Yeah.
we're still human.
Yeah, so good. So good. And there's so many different facets to your work and so many ways that you're connecting with different people in different statuses, which cuz you never punch down, you only punch up
Right.
and all those things. Have you ever had a moment in your life where you're like, "Oh, that did not land. How am I getting out of this?" or just, where it didn't go well?
I would actually tell you there's probably more stories of those than just one.
Yeah.
And that's a great question because at least for me, you are like a comedian at heart. You are true comedic.
Yeah.
And for me, I would tell jokes in two different places. One in which I was trying to use it to connect, and other times when I was trying to use it to deflect.
Oh, interesting. I love this.
And sometimes when I noticed that I was telling a joke, it was
Yeah,
because I was uncomfortable with the situation, not the
right.
opposite.
Yeah,
And then and that's where I helped learn like, oh, there's a Judd part showing. Is that shame? Is that guilt? Where is that humor coming from that's really used as a mask, as a deflection, as an illusion? Like
yeah,
if you'll laugh at, I messed up. We all do them. It's really me being very uncomfortable with what's going on with me. And that helped me. That was like a conscious awareness. It was like a guidepost. Like, ooh, you're using humor, but it's not really for the joke.
right.
And then I was able to to take those moments and learn that true humor chips away at the shame.
Yes.
you know?
Yes. It really, you know what? We're so often we're afraid we're going to lose our sense of importance, right? But the truth is it allows us to take risks, to think differently, to communicate differently, it makes us more receptive. So I love that, and that's so wise.
You know,
Like
yeah, I found that the times that I would connect with strangers the most
yeah.
was the times where I was like, "Holy shit, you don't know how I fell flat on my face on this one. Let me tell you this story."
Yeah.
And it was the humor and the way that I would approach what would have been a shameful situation. And they're going, "Wow, I feel more trustworthy with Judd because boy, he's been through some shit."
Yeah.
But he's also got through it. And so telling those stories with humor or even without, but just telling them and putting them out there
Yeah.
took away this sense of shame that all of us are driven by a lot of times in behaviors and actions and our narratives and beliefs. We think we're the only ones struggling. So how can I tell it? But what if I can tell how that I'm struggling in a way that even adds humor to it and tells
Yeah.
you the story? And doesn't that drive connection? I mean, isn't there someone else to go, I can laugh at that because I have been there too?
Absolutely. It enhances, team collaboration. It enhances,
Yes,
people feeling like they're a part of something, which is so good.
definitely.
Do you have any tips for leaders that you would like to, you know,
Yeah,
I'd love that.
yes. One of them is create a shame friendly work environment by making your mistakes growing opportunities and not feeling like a failure, right? There's a difference in I am a failure and I failed. I fail drives, I need to do better, I can do better, and I'm going to do better.
Yeah.
I'm a failure is despair and shame and guilt and giving up because now you believe that you are that mistake rather than I made a mistake. And in order to remove the fear of making a mistake, I call it FOMOM, you got to give permission to your team. And that starts with leadership. And so there will be meetings where I will start and I call it my fail forward initiative. And I'll say to somebody, uh, who's got a great mistake this week? Anybody
Ha.
got like an unbelievable mistake that we can all learn from? And that little shift, right? And then I'll say, I'll start. I was learning this new case management system and I rushed through it so fast that I didn't save the work because I didn't know how to do that. And so I lost all my work. So really, I just need to slow down a little bit and learn the three steps first before doing it and then doing it because it just doubled my time. You know what I mean? And so that was my mistake. Who else? Anybody else have a good mistake? And when you do that,
Some
you will.
guy puts his hand up missing a finger. No. No. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
you know, that's sometimes it's those moments that
Yeah.
someone will say something and we all laugh and then we
Yeah.
recognize, oh, there's nothing to fear from making a mistake in this workplace.
I have to tell you a story quickly. I usually just try and listen in these episodes, but when I was a kid, I played classical violin forever. And I had this really old violin teacher, Maurice Soloway, and he would go around to all the schools and play for all the kids, and he was a really strict teacher. I even broke my arm like right here, but it was just my bowing arm, so he made me come in and do all my fingering. Like he was that guy. And I was doing we have a competition here called the Kiwanis Festival where we have to go in and we play. And I was, 12, 13 at the time. And I got to this school and had my little violin. And all I thought to myself was every wrong note I am going to play so loud every single wrong note, and I just went for it. I ended up winning against one of his like best students, by the way. But I just remember that thing in my head of, you know what, screw it. Like every mistake I'm going to embrace. I've
Uh-huh.
worked so hard, and you know what? I'm just going to play it loud and proud. And, you know, it works in your favor at the end when you're not afraid. So I love that, the no shame and all that. I think it's really I think it just lends to an experience of people feeling like they can really be themselves.
That's right. It's our teams want to feel seen, heard, and feel valued. And they
Yeah.
also want that sense of belonging. And so what more of a sense of belonging to let people know, oh, you've made mistakes. I've made mistakes too. It's
Yeah.
human. And so when we can learn from them and grow from them and see them as opportunities
Yeah.
as opposed to
I want to
fear,
hide.
I want to hide. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some stories, Kate, of, there was JP Morgan.
Mhm.
It was called the London, it'll come to me. And a trader made a mistake, and he was too shameful to bring this mistake to anyone. And for 4 minutes, wallowed with how to deal with this mistake. And that mistake became a $6 billion mistake.
Oh, okay.
Right? Nobody's
Mhm.
laughing on that one. And
No.
right? And but the point is, like, think about just the timing in a doctor or a nurse who makes a mistake,
Yeah, of course.
right? Wow. But
Yeah.
so if people in our workplace can't report it, can't talk about it, can't go and find at the end the bit of humor
Yeah.
in our own error so that we can grow and learn from it, we go backwards.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, absolutely. Have you like personally, do you have like, have you found like certain benefits of leading when, you know, when you really are leading with levity?
I have an employee handbook, and I didn't think anybody read this shit. Like, I didn't even read it. Like, I didn't even read it. And I was like, we're having employees come on and sign these things, and we're putting processes and procedures in it, not just like, when the office burns, where's the nearest exit. It's, there were things about it that I wanted the team to read. And so I decided that I was gonna tell a story. And this is how I would catch our team from reading it. It was called a Squire's Guide to Knighthood, because at our law firm, our mascot is a knight, and our core values be our knight, our client's knight in shining armor, right? And so I
Right.
wrote a story about this knight who went to go find a dragon, but the dragon slipped and hurt his wing. And right, like a slip and fall. And the
Yeah.
knight had the opportunity to fight the dragon or help the dragon. And he ends up helping the dragon. And in helping the dragon, he ends up becoming this knight in shining armor. And so I literally write this story out, and I have a dragon naming contest. So the employee who can come up with the best name wins. And one employee called it Nugget, and everybody voted on Nugget. There's many probably reasons I don't even want to know now that it's in a children's
Yeah,
picture book
yeah, yeah. I love
series.
it.
But that we put that into the employee handbook. So now it
Yeah.
became this funny, cute story that as you're reading about the knight, and and the dragon wouldn't go by the water,
Yeah.
thing between 12 and 1. And then we made that into, like, the whole employee handbook became this story about the knight and the dragon.
Oh, nugget.
Right? Nugget the dragon. And now it's like,
Yeah.
now it's just a different approach, right? Now you have
Right.
a team member who sits in first and starts to read this. And maybe, listen, maybe there are companies that don't want this atmosphere and they want to keep it buttoned up and really tight. But I wanted people to show up authentically. I wanted my workforce to show up real and raw and genuine. And I'm hiring you for you. You know,
Yes.
your unique qualities and the reason that I brought you on. And I want to see more of that at the company. So open it by starting with a handbook that encourages
Humor and levity. I love that. Are you working like when you are hiring because there are, it's a pretty big firm. I don't know, like I think it is. But do you find it's very multi-generational now?
It's my own firm has been around for now 12, 14 years. And so I don't have enough time in terms of multi-generational. But what I
Right.
do have is multi-year loyalty in teams that have been with me. I have a lawyer's been with me from the start. Another one has been with me for 12 years and 10 years and 8 years. So um
But
there's a
retention
there's
says
a lot of
everything.
retention.
Yeah, like if people hated it, they'd leave.
Yes. Yes. And I have to tell you
Yeah.
about that. I don't know why those people stayed. Like, I sometimes wonder why the 4 people who've been with me for the longest, why
Yeah.
I think that's the joke. I think they were like, "Let's see how long we can stay with him." That's the joke. Because I don't know why, because my retention rate was like 3% in the first 4 years. I couldn't
Right.
create the culture that I wanted to create because
You weren't that
first
person yet. You
I
didn't know.
I'll tell you why. I was inconsistent. Because one
Right.
day I came in and I'm funny Judd, and another I'm asshole Judd. And
Right.
I'm firing people. And then another day I come in, I'm like, hey, everybody, who wants to
Yeah.
go out to lunch? And when they have that inconsistency, there's
Right.
no psychological safety for the team. And so they
Yeah.
don't know what version of Judd comes up. And it's like, wait, is this the version we can admit to a mistake? Or is this the version I'm going to get fired for the mistake and I'm going to bury it? I'm
Right.
going to throw it away, delete it, hide it in my drawer. And so
Yeah.
if you went to my Glassdoor reviews, I can proudly say that the first ones, when you read early on, holy schmoly,
You can
they
say
sound like it's like literally it probably should have been shut down by the Department of Labor. It
Yeah.
was like a horror show. They're like the book. There was one. The subject line only said "don't,
Oh,
don't."
wow. Don't.
Pros, none. Cons, so many. I'm limited by 500 words. And like there were a lot of these reviews. And now my company's reviews are very different. So I wasn't always great at great retention and keeping. In fact,
Yeah.
I lost a lot of really good people because I
Right.
pushed them out, because
Yeah.
I kept it too stiff and too stern, and I didn't allow it to be human. And
Yeah.
human places are places where we can laugh, giggle.
Yeah. And that creates trust and
Yes,
productivity
absolutely.
and all those things. Yeah, I love this. I
Yeah.
love this, Judd. It's so just the evolution and hearing how, you've grown into trusting humor and levity within your organization, within your work as a speaker, as a writer, as, an author of children's books and, upcoming books. I think it's pretty amazing, even in your podcast. So I think
Mm,
I think we're always growing and always learning, and I think it's an important part to admit that, to be able to say I don't know or I screwed up or and starting off, and I love the fact that you can start off, your meetings with I made a mistake.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. So
I went from the
yes.
shit show to the big show. And I'll tell you, being able to acknowledge that is so compassionate and
Yeah.
so self-graceful
Mhm.
that allows me to be the best version of a leader today. Because if I did not give myself the compassion, when there is no playbook for this, for a leader who's a new boss, I've never been a boss before. And
Yeah.
so, I could only mirror what I learned. And I had a jerk boss myself. And so, of
Yeah.
course, I'm going to take a lot of that with me. And being able to say that to you now, that I had a shit show at one point. that like I was the joke of of the company. That
Right.
to be able to say that gives me the self-compassion and the grace to say, but now I can show up the way I want to, and I can be better, and I can show up as the best version of the boss. And so humor also allows for healing.
Aw, what that's perfect. It really does. And you know what? And just hearing you speak and that growth within it, like so often, we'll do interviews where, yeah, I use humor, but I love the evolution of it. And like honestly, a lot of people don't want to invest with leaders who haven't failed because that
Right.
failure always makes you a better leader.
Right.
And when we can use humor in those moments to look at ourselves instead of judging ourselves and actually grow from what, we've come to understand and how we're dealing with people so differently, I think it's pretty amazing. And so grateful that you shared all that. Pretty incredible. I have to say, because we usually end the episode with what's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you. Do you have a story you'd like to share?
Oh God. Okay. I don't know your audience, but I'm going to go with it.
Oh, my audience is fine,
It's a
please.
story that I've only told once.
Okay.
I'm a young lawyer and I'm getting assigned a matrimonial case. I didn't even really know anything about family law, but I'm new to the law firm and they stick you wherever they want. And so I go down to this courthouse, but now it's a family law courthouse. I haven't been there. I don't really know the area well. I'm not navigating it well. And suddenly I feel like I have to use the restroom. And the urge to use the restroom is profound.
Okay.
Some courthouse parking is like a mess.
Yeah.
And so finally I see where the sheriff's police officers have parking spots. And I'm like, they could tow my car. I'm literally going to have a problem here. And so I leave my car and I go into the courthouse
Yeah.
and I'm sweating now and I'm gripping my legs together, tightening my cheeks, and holding on for dear life that I can find the nearest restroom. And sure enough, I have to go through the metal detector.
Yeah.
So I walk through after I unload my briefcase, my thing, and it's beep. Shit. I go back around. Keys, I left that. Beep. I
Oh,
go back around. I finally had like my pockets out and left nothing in. They finally wanded me. I asked where the restroom was. They told me it was in the back by the courthouse. I left my stuff there, ran, wobbling like a penguin, as fast as I really could to this restroom. And I take off my new suit that I'm wearing, and it has an extra button. And
oh,
that extra button caused me 2 seconds longer than I had.
oh.
And when I came out of the restroom, I had a suit, but I no longer had underwear.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm
You
so
know.
and 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 had to take off my tie. Because that
Ah.
was hanging down why I was trying to use the restroom. And so when I came out of the restroom, I'm now in the court with no underwear and no tie. And it was like the judge was like on that show on that movie. Um, he was like, "Where's your tie?"
Oh
And I was like,
God.
and I'm like, Your Honor, I messed up my tie, and I apologize. Would you like me to put up the top button? And he said, "Are you
Yeah.
serious with that?" And I said, "Yeah, like that's all I could do." And he just looked at me, and I thought to myself, I
I
hope my
can't tell him
car's
I
not
got
towed.
You haven't lived a little. You haven't lived until you have a good crap in the pants story.
Right?
You
Right? It
just,
just didn't have to
it
happen
just
on my first day
first
as the
day.
associate being sent to the case. When I came back, they said, "How'd it go?" I shit it
You're
up.
like, yeah, yeah. Hey, did you win? Do you remember?
It was like emotion, and
Oh, right. Okay.
I don't
Okay.
I don't even know. I was just so hoping someone wasn't in the restroom with me. But
Uh,
I'll never forget that story. I'll never forget
I
that story.
love that. I love that you shared that. I
I
I
have
I
to. It's
do.
honest. I needed to. You know what, Kate? I needed to share it in my life. I needed to put it out there somewhere. And why not on your podcast?
Why not? Oh my God. That's actually a great idea for a podcast. Just your shitting yourself
Right?
podcast.
You know how many
You
good
just
stories
come
are?
on with that story.
You know how many good stories?
I don't know, Judd. I think we should start it. I just think we should do it.
So funny. The oh shit podcast.
The Oh Shit podcast. Oh my God. This has been such a pleasure, honestly. Like so much reflection that, like, and, but even like, just like everything you've done, everything you're doing, how you're dealing with people, whether it's at the firm or whether it's, your podcast or speaking or your books, the fact that you're always evolving and always growing as a human and always trying to be better and using levity within those moments. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
I loved having you on my show.
Oh,
This is
I'm so
fantastic.
excited.
And
Yeah.
even being on yours. Thank you so much
Oh,
for having me.
thank you. What a
So
fun
welcome.
time. I'm like, I don't really want it to end. Okay.